Look, it's bad enough when the climate protesters fruitlessly attack priceless art, but now they're coming for the Constitution. Of all the things we could have accomplished, did we really oust George Santos only to replace him with a Democrat? A sudden influx of shootings paired with a national security threat, Supreme Court unleashed on the Colorado ballot case last week, Soros has purchased the airwaves, and my take on how the Biden campaign has finally come full circle and become, well, just very cringy. Coming up today, February 16th, I'm Alexis Wilkins, and this is Between the Headlines. Climate protesters take D.C., and their first target? The Constitution. Why? I don't know. Here it is.
We are determined to foment a rebellion. We will not be held accountable to laws in which we have no voice or representation. This country is founded on the conditions that all men are created for equally and endowed with the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We're calling for all people to have all these rights, not just wealthy white men. We all deserve clean air, water, food, and a livable climate. Right now, our children, we don't want their children to the end of civilization.
Now, what I want you to notice about this clip, and we didn't even show you the whole thing, is just how long it is.
Well, sometimes you can't help these people till they hit rock bottom.
Why didn't anyone tackle these people? Any security measures? This is why it keeps happening. And now, as a great parallel to Democrat efforts, this is what's happening to our founding documents. I mean, in National Treasure, a movie, they were safer than this. I thought that if someone breathed too close, they were escorted out. I don't know how they think this helps climate change, but this is the stuff that I believe we're sincerely too nice about. The left removes entire statues, and we see something like this happen. Security takes forever to act on the situation, and it leaves the news cycle a second later. Somehow there's a punishment for removing a satanic statue in a government building, but not for defacing protected art? Ridiculous. A special election was just held for George Santos' seat, which I'm sure we all recall he was ousted from last year, and a lot of people, including myself, felt like this was a waste of time, considering we continue to attack our own and not oust people who really deserve it from the Democrat side of things.
Who else in Congress is committing fraud?
They're all frauds.
Name them.
If you were to put me,
name them.
If you were to put them all under the same scrutiny I was put under, you'd fucking vacate the whole goddamn building.
A majority is a majority, and you know what? The whole ordeal cost taxpayers almost $10 million. The Republican who ran in the special election was not an America First Republican, and it was made clear that conservatives won't get out and vote without the MAGA factor. Democrat Suozzi ended up winning the race, and President Trump had this to say about it. I say all the time, the left does so much wrong, but the one thing they do is they stick together. This is the problem. With extreme sensitivity, because real people lose their lives and these crimes are capitalized upon to make a point, I say this. We have seen an influx of shootings and gun violence and any gun-related crime the same week that we have a national security threat just waiting to be declassified. And Joe Biden's office can make a statement on that pertaining to infringing on our Second Amendment rights, but he couldn't make a statement on the SEALs who passed last week for days. The silence over the police officers who were beaten by illegal immigrants in Times Square. His statement, obviously, encourages enough is enough language. Of course, it's the gun fault, not the trans shooter who targeted white Christians. While we could joke about the fact that she can't even read a statement at the beginning of her message, I think we're past joking. Let's watch this whole thing just to see how the administration has already infringed on your constitutional rights through executive order and is planning on urging the legislative body to do the exact same.
We've now had more mass shootings in 2024 than there have been days in the year. Gotta think about that one. Through executive action and implementation of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the president has taken action to keep guns out of dangerous hands by expanding red flag laws, enhancing background checks, and cracking down on gun trafficking while also making historic investment in violence prevention. But as we all know, it is not enough. Congress must act. Congress needs to act. And it is shameful that we have not seen more action on this. We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, require safe storage of guns, pass a national red flag law, enact universal background checks, and invest in proven solutions that reduce violence. We know these actions can save lives, and our communities literally can't afford to wait.
The timing of this is interesting, considering the push for gun reform is strongest as we begin to see the most unrest in the country. Oh, and a border invasion? Tell me in the comments if you agree. Now for our constitutional piece.
Constitution of the United States.
Last week's Supreme Court absolute smackdown is something we just have to talk about. The Democrats of Colorado and the other states waiting on the precedent were holding their breath for this to go well. It did not. In a 2-hour hearing, Jason Murray was shredded by effectively all of the justices, and if this doesn't come out 9-0, it'll come out 8-1. Some highlights: Clarence Thomas asked Murray for examples in context, and he, shocking, didn't have any. A few more clips.
Including one still in effect, Section 2383 of Title 18 prohibits insurrection. It's a federal criminal statute. And if you're convicted of that, you are, it says, shall be disqualified from holding any office. And so there is a federal statute on the books, but President Trump has not been charged with that. So what are we to make of that?
Well, certainly you need a procedure in order to have any remedy to enforce the disqualification, which is different.
That's a whole separate question. That's the de facto doctrine. Doesn't work here. Okay, put that aside. He's disqualified from the moment. Self-executing. Done. And I would think that a person who would receive a direction from that person, the president, former president, in your view, would be free to act as he or she wishes without regard to that individual.
I don't think so, because I think, again, the de facto officer doctrine would nevertheless come into play to say this is...
No, de facto, that doesn't work, Mr. Murray, because de facto officer is to ratify the conduct that's done afterwards and insulate it from judicial review. Put that aside. I'm not going to say it again. Put it aside. Okay? I think Justice Alito's asking a very different question, a more pointed one, and more difficult one for you, I understand. But I think it deserves an answer.
Democrats filled the news cycle with state by state trying to take Trump off the ballot. Why? Because they anticipate that people don't know anything about the judicial process or in their dependency on a banana republic court like the one in New York or Georgia. They prop up people who do not have the intellect, who don't have the background to do their job, but instead people who they know will be morally bankrupt. The very last place for integrity in the court systems where all of this will inevitably end up, the Supreme Court. Even leftist justices were skeptical of Murray. This is why Supreme Court selection is a lasting legacy. In the Constitution, you can find it in Article 3, Section 1, so important that it's not a later established provision. The founders knew how important it would become. The framers established a Supreme Court as part of the federal judiciary to ensure the enforcement of federal laws and to provide a final arbiter in legal disputes between states and between the federal government and the states. They believed that a centralized judiciary was necessary to interpret federal laws consistently across the nation and to prevent states from undermining the authority of the new federal government. So to clarify, the Supreme Court's original context and intention was to protect the federal government from the states. The establishment of the Supreme Court also served to balance the powers of the three branches of government and to protect the individual rights and liberties by providing a check on potential abuses of power by the executive and legislative branches. If you've ever wondered how they manipulate the media to only express certain things, this is how. You're lying! It was released that Huma Abedin and George Soros' son Alex Soros are in a relationship. While it's liberal coziness and matters in some capacities, I suppose, Alex and Huma announcing their relationship in Paris on Valentine's Day is media fluff. In other news related to the same last name, with the other story jamming up the news cycle search page, Soros Fund management purchased a potentially controlling amount of Odyssey, the nation's second largest chain of radio stations. This is a play in an election year to start buying up the narrative. Odyssey owns 220 radio stations, including some of them hosting conservative pundit shows. And this is how it happens. The news cycle paired with the strategy of election year politics, and it's not even front page news. Biden's Dark Biden campaign is weird, period. Conservatives echoed this sentiment throughout social media, and honestly, it's not like liberals celebrated it all that much either. We can talk about it being too close to home given all the jokes about the 2020-2024 parallels and the idea that the Super Bowl could or couldn't be rigged. But honestly, this is the perfect opportunity for the right to be the cooler party. Besides the Never Trump people who still think Press Secretary Karine is competent, the image is falling apart for the middle-left youth. There are a lot of issues with politics influencing culture. Beyonce posing nearly nude in her album cover for her upcoming Texas-rooted country album, or the left's argument that the conservatives lose the culture war.
Yeah, whatever.
I don't know if it helps or not that people are pointing out that Taylor and Travis are likely poised to be a leftist power couple, or if it even matters that everyone commenting on it is making the NFL money. But I think it's in these other opportunities to take advantage of the playing field. The left created an impressionable generation. We should be using it. The kids care about what's cool. We saw this in Vivek's campaign, we see this in the moves towards TikTok, the memes online, the impressionable left that swears they won't vote for Biden again over the Israel-Palestine conflict. There's an opportunity here, now that the Biden campaign is encroaching on territory the kids would call cringe. You know, since they can't seem to understand that the reason they can't ever buy a house or buy groceries without spending their whole paycheck is in fact because of the Biden administration. Thank you for watching this week. For more, follow, like, and comment. As always, do your own research, take care of one another, and remember, the truth is always somewhere between the headlines.